Welcome to County Chatter. I'm Paula Hersey, your host, and with me today, the Barnstable County Administrator, Beth Albert. Beth, it's wonderful to see you. It's been a lot of years since we've done an interview together.
Yes, that's
but
true.
You're in a brand new position with the county, formerly the Human Services Department, and now the Administrator. 2 years now?
For 2 years, yeah.
2 years. So let's start off with explaining to residents really how county government is working and how it's organized. I'm not sure everybody kind of has that in their mind. There's a lot of different departments and programs and services that come out of the county. So give us an overview of how it's structured.
Certainly, thank you. And it is nice to see you. It's been a while. I've been with Barnstable County since 2008. I was the Director of Human Services for many years, and then 2 years ago became the County Administrator, so I'm entering my third year. So Barnstable County is unique, definitely different than any other county across the Commonwealth, in how we're organized and also in the variety of programs and services we offer. We're structured, the Bible of the county, so to speak, is our charter. So Barnstable County has a charter. We have two branches of government. We have an executive branch, which are our three county commissioners, or our Board of Regional Commissioners. Yeah. That's Commissioner Mark Forrest, Ron Bergstrom, and Sheila Lyons. That's the executive branch. Those are my direct bosses. And then we also have a legislative branch. So we have a 15-member assembly of delegates. So there is a delegate voted in from each town. And they have a representative vote. So based on the population of the town equates the percentage of a vote that they get. So it's not, one man, one vote. They're
Okay,
weighted
so it's
votes
a weighted vote. Okay.
Based on population. So town of Barnstable has the largest percentage because you have the most populated town.
Okay.
So Cape Cod, the 15 towns of Cape Cod, is what the Barnstable County Regional Government is comprised of. So, and as I started to say, we are very different in how we're organized in the array of services we provide to county residents and to towns. Years ago, the Commonwealth pretty much abolished counties, so there's very few existing counties. We have counties in Bristol and Norfolk and Plymouth. But we are really unique because Barnstable County is truly a regional government. And I can go a little bit into the programs and services if you want.
Yeah, it's an interesting, when you say it's a regional government, so federal, state, county, then obviously your municipalities. Mm-hmm. When we talk about that structure, within you said the commissioners to the assembly, how does that county administrator and those programs and services kind of come down from those? Do they manage you or and then you manage everything else?
Right.
It's an interesting conundrum there.
Right. So our organizational chart, which is always something I like to look at when I'm learning about an organization. So we have three branches, three different elected officials, groups of elected officials. We have the assembly, the legislative branch, and they're primarily responsible for appropriating funds. We work with them closely on the budget, et cetera. We have our executive branch, who really are responsible for the programs and services, that are run out of Barnstable County. And then we have our Registrar of Deeds, who is also an elected official, and that's an important piece because the registrar is the primary source of revenue through deeds excise tax. So we have three different elected groups. So the county commissioners hired me, so I report directly to them. Okay. And then I'm responsible for the day-to-day operation of the county and the programs and services it provides. So each of our county departments has a department head. Most of them have deputy directors. And again, the focus is really on providing regional services. So doing things that it just is more cost effective or makes more sense to do on a regional basis as opposed to it being town by town by town by town. And I'll just give you an example of that. with our health department, our public health department. Each town has a health department, but then we also have a regional public health department that works on, emergency preparedness. They were very involved in the pandemic response with
Absolutely,
COVID.
yep.
Have a public health nursing division, et cetera. Do a variety of things. The public health department, or Department of Health and Environment, also runs a water quality lab. And so so we have a water quality lab. We're actually adding some new equipment, and we'll be doing some additional water quality testing starting this summer. So that is a growing area, and certainly having a county water quality lab makes a lot more sense than each town having its own
and
lab.
Barnstable actually avails ourselves to that service for our swimming beaches, for our ocean beaches, and I know you've been doing some work with PFAS as well.
Yep.
But one of the programs that I thought for countywide is the dredge program. Like how there's really not a lot of towns that can afford to get a dredge vessel and dredge their own areas. So I think that's an important program and service that comes out of the county.
Certainly. So you're absolutely right. The dredge would be another example of a county program. Provides regional services. Anyone that needs, any municipality, any town that needs dredging, and has their permits, and there's a lot that goes along to that, providing the dredging services. But again, it is a regional service. And right now we're looking at the dredge closely, the rate structure, because the rates that we charge are so reasonable that we need to relook at that to make sure that we're generating enough revenue to run the dredge program. It's a little bit of a different county program in that it's considered an enterprise fund, so it generates revenue, but then it also has to be self-sustaining.
Right. Your IT program would be
another. That's another program, but IT is a department, information technology. Starting about, I'd say 15 years ago, there was a move to provide regional IT services. And that's evolved over the years. So right now we have, I think, 6 different towns that contract with the county to provide regional IT services. So that, depending on the needs of the town, that may be one day a week, that may be just a menu of different services that we provide. But that service has definitely evolved over the years. We don't serve every town, but I think right now we have contracts with six to seven different towns, and again, different level of service depending on the needs of the town. The beauty of regional IT services is that we are able to, because of the scale, financially oftentimes it makes sense. We have purchasing power for some of the very expensive licensing software, et cetera, that we all use.
Yeah, and when we talk about programs, there's so many programs under the county that people I don't actually think are aware of.
Right.
Your Buy Fresh Local is part of this. Your hazardous waste is part of this.
Right.
One of the ones that I have done some shows with has been the county extension with the Sea Grant, Woods Hole Sea Grant, which is the water testing, but on the shellfish side. Talk a little bit about some of these programs that you think are really important to towns. And this is technical assistance. Like, we wouldn't have these types of things in our own towns. Obviously, Barnstable being large does have some of that technical, but we rely on the county for a lot of these things, especially planning and development as well.
Right. So the cooperative extension is considered the educational arm of the county, so to speak. And so you're right. So there we do have experts in aquaculture, and they can provide and do provide technical assistance to shellfish wardens and to towns. Buy Fresh, Buy Local is a very popular, a very popular program that the county runs. Also, through the cooperative extension, we have nutritional programs, and so We have nutritionists that will work with councils on aging, that will work with different housing developments, child care providers, early education, about nutrition and access to good nutritious food. And that dovetails really nicely with the Buy Fresh, Buy Local. So really that educating people about local foods, how to prepare them safely, nutrition-wise, but then also tapping into our local farmers. So that's a nice connection. I think another program, that I'd like to highlight is the SHINE program. So serving the health insurance needs of everyone. So that's a free Medicare counseling to Medicare beneficiaries and their family about how to access Medicare, how to choose the right plans. It's an amazing program. I think last year we served about 7,000 individuals during open enrollment. And again, we work with the councils on aging, which are situated in each of the 15 towns, but are able to bring in state and local resources paired with county money to really have a robust SHINE counseling program. I think we have over 60 volunteers. They're all highly trained. It's a very, very complex system. Again, working with the towns, getting the services out to the residents of the town, but leveraging the county structure and resources to tap into some state funding for the SHINE program. I think is a great example of a county service. I know that you've interviewed somebody from Children's Cove recently, but that's another example of a regional service where we have a child advocacy center, receives federal and state dollars to provide services to victims of child sexual abuse and exploitation. Not a very serious, difficult topic, but it's child advocacy centers is a great resource for Barnstable County and the islands actually. So yeah, a lot of different programs and services. I could go on and on and on.
Well, you could, but let's back up a little bit. Is, the county receives federal and state money, but data has to back that up. And I do remember back in your human services days that data is really important for grant writing and to access some of these state and federal programs and grants. So how does the county kind of look at something like accessing that money and gathering that data? I know that Human Services has done a lot of work in socioeconomic kind of data out there to help the state and federal agencies understand what's going on with our populations down here. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Certainly. So it's an excellent point. And before I talk a little bit about some of the assessments that we've done as far as data collection focused on human service needs, the county operating budget is modest, I think, compared to some towns, about $22 million this past year. We use those funds, those county general funds, to leverage almost like $12 million in federal and state dollars. So when you think about the county budget, not only is it the general fund, but we also use it to leverage and bring down federal and state dollars. But you're right, oftentimes telling the story of Cape Cod through data is really critically important, because oftentimes funders at both the federal and state level, their experience with Cape Cod is they come for vacation, and it's a beautiful place. And they don't really understand the circumstances of people that live and work here year-round. So that data collection piece is critical in telling the story about the socioeconomic and public health issues on Cape Cod. And just a couple, I think, good examples of that are back in 2014, when the opioid epidemic was, was on everybody's radar and really becoming talked about more, we conducted a baseline assessment of, all of the epidemiological information and data we could collect as far as even literature reviews on substance use disorder on Cape Cod. So that that piece of work was critical in us getting state dollars to come down. Same with homelessness. The county for years has received funding from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development to make sure that we're entering and collecting data on homelessness. And we have used that data to, again, bring resources not to the county, through the county to the organizations providing services to homeless. So the county also, we provide critical services to the towns, but a lot of the funds that come through to the county also can be passed through to community-based organizations. And I mean, I'm most familiar with, obviously, the human service end of it because
Right.
of all the years I spent as the director of human services. But we're securing grants for youth homelessness, again, collecting data on youth homelessness to be able to demonstrate what our needs are. So you're absolutely right in that using data, collecting data for Cape Cod, and then using that, and anyone can avail themselves of that data as well, right?
Right,
Not
right.
just the county departments.
Right, and that's great for, the municipalities who don't have to go out and do that data collection and reduplicate that wheel, is they can access the data to write their own grants for some
Certainly.
of the monies that are out there that are available in the state and federal. And we're talking about state and federal monies. Let's talk ARPA a little
Okay,
bit.
sure.
These funds came in through COVID. There were an enormous amount of miscommunication of how they were going to be dispersed. There's a formula and a schedule of disbursement of ARPA funds. Can you explain that so a resident can understand it?
Certainly. So right, ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act, was signed into law, I think, on March 13th of 2021. And it was like 2 weeks before I started in my new job. So I was handed ARPA first day on the job. And there was the federal, the U.S. Treasury, federal guidelines around ARPA weren't finalized for almost a year. So
Wow.
so when you talk about confusion and miscommunication, a lot of it was because the bill had been signed into law, but the guidance in the information in the Federal Register for those of us that received ARPA funds was being written, right? So it's, but we've made it through, and the county received a little bit over $41 million of ARPA funds that went directly to Barnstable County because we do have an active county. The towns also received ARPA funds themselves. So early on with ARPA, there were differing opinions about how, it's $41 million, it's a lot of
Sure.
money. Differing opinions about the best use of ARPA funds. I am really proud of the way Barnstable County handled our ARPA allocation and what it's being allocated for.
There's a lot of public outreach for that, and
a tremendous amount of
asking
public.
citizens.
Right. What are the
they-
what are the top priorities? What are the top
Right.
problems? Again, keeping within the ARPA guidelines. And so, not surprising, housing and water were the two top issues. The commissioners convened an advisory group, a blue ribbon panel of all of the folks that you would want to help make some of these difficult decisions. And so our advisory group was really helpful in developing some criteria about how the county should use its ARPA funds. And ultimately, about $10 million went directly to the towns. So towns got an allocation, they could apply. Most of those funds, I think we have one more town to fund, but almost all of them have been used for water quality projects that were either underway or wastewater management planning. 11.4 is appropriated for affordable housing projects.
Okay.
That's the last kind of piece of the ARPA funds. We're just finishing up. We're making awards for that 11.4 in the next month or so. We just finished up an RFP process. We had a great ceremony a few weeks ago and gave out $5 million to small nonprofits and one for-profit. The organizations really on the front lines of responding to COVID. So a lot of really we had a tremendous amount of response in folks wanting to tap into those funds. But we were capped at 5 million, which is still an incredible amount of money. And so the commissioners and the assembly, we had a celebration a few weeks ago. And then we also invested in county programs and services, right? So talk about the dredge, and you talk about some of the other, the lab, the water quality lab. We used a portion, about 12 million of the ARPA funds, to invest in capital investments in county programs and services, which is critical. And I'll just use the dredge as an example. The dredge, I think we about $1 million in capital. So, new skiff things and, nuts and bolts. I mean, all of the things you need to operate a dredge. I don't know the names of them all. But we were able to leverage that $1 million to get $1 million from the state through the mass dredge program. So, I mean, that's amazing. So we've got, $2 million for capital purchases to support the dredge program. So that was really great.
Capital that you wouldn't have had.
Or the county would have had to take out loans to pay for long-term, et cetera.
Sure.
Exactly. So that's been incredible. So, at the end of the day, it was a bit of a struggle in the beginning with ARPA, and I think, but at the end of the day, I think Barnstable County can be really proud of how we use the ARPA funds, because we didn't just keep it and use it for revenue replacement. We really invested in things of importance for our region: housing and water, right? And then the public health response to COVID. So
they go, housing and water go hand in hand.
Hand.
It's like the
Water,
chicken
housing,
and the egg kind of thing. You need one for the other and the other for one. So, we could probably talk about county services and programs for another hour. But what I'd like to do is maybe wrap up and have you kind of think about, what would you tell residents? How would you want them to get involved with the county? There are a lot of volunteer opportunities. There are meetings that they can view. There's a brand spanking new website with capecod.gov as your new URL. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I know is a feather in the cap. So what would you leave residents? How would you want them to, they've just watched this program. They want to learn something more. They want to get involved. What would you tell them?
So thank you for recognizing the website, because I was hoping to be able to kind of make sure we got that
Sonia
on. So
sure.
capecod.gov, I mean, that was a big deal. It was, we had to get legislative support to get the .gov. And capecod.gov is a lot easier to remember than barnstablecounty.org. So we have invested in staff, a communication manager, and a communication coordinator to build our online presence, right? And so I think if any member of the public is interested in finding more out about the programs and services of Barnstable County, the first place I would go is capecod.gov.
Right.
So it's capecod.gov.
Very easy to navigate.
Very easy to navigate. I mean, depending on areas of interest, I'm always available. I have an open door. Any resident could call me and talk about what they're interested in. I can direct them to the right department. But I think going to the website would give somebody a really good overview. We are making a concerted effort to continue to communicate to the public about all of the good programs and services Barnstable County provides. It's one of those things. You can't stop doing that. You have to just kind of keep at it, and hopefully at some point people will be saturated and folks will know. But we just got done with the whole branding, so everything now has the right logo, the right colors, and so a lot of work going into communication, which is really key, driving people back to our website for information.
That's fantastic. Thanks so much, Beth, for
thank you.
Joining us here on County Chatter. You've 2 years on the job already is just an amazing as county administrator. Hopefully in the next 2 more years, we'll have more programs and services, and people will get involved with the county and know what you do.
Thank you. That's great.
Thank you.